Well, U.S. Congressman Mo Brooks joins us now. He's an Alabama Republican. Congressman, thank you for joining us. Your caucus, Republicans, voted about 2-1, a little more than 2-1 for this war measure to arm the Free Syrian Army. Why did you question it? Why did you oppose it?
Well, let me be clear first about what the vote today was about. The White House and the President believe, and I don't disagree, that they can form a coalition and they can use American military forces and coalition forces to defeat the Islamic State in Iraq, in Syria, or anywhere else. So that's not what the issue tonight was about. The issue tonight was about whether the United States of America is going to raise, train, and arm a rebel group that is then going to be engaged in Syria's civil war. And I'm very hesitant for the United States of America to be engaged in a civil war when our Secretary of Defense and our commanding general, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is telling us that we may have to use ground troops, combat troops, in order to be successful, while at the same time you've got our Commander-in-Chief, the President of the United States, vowing that ground troops will never be used.
So you see this as basically the decision that Congress decided not to make a year ago, which is don't get involved in fighting the government in Syria. Don't get involved in backing a rebel group, because you believe that this Free Syrian Army's main goal is to overthrow the government in Damascus. It's not to join our fight against ISIS. Is that your thinking?
Well, I think to date that's an accurate description. Their goal has been to topple the Assad regime, which is the current governing body of Syria, although they've had a mixed relationship with the Islamic State. At times they're contested with each other. At times they work together as they try to topple the Syrian Assad regime.
What do you make of this coalition we're talking about? I couldn't tell from your first remark. Do you believe it's doable? Do you believe we can assemble, the way George Bush Sr. did as president, a coalition of actual fighting people on the ground? In other words, the Saudis come in and fight on the ground or fight in the air. The Jordanians contribute. The Emirates contribute. Do you see that actually being a coalition, or is it going to be, once again, us using our air power and maybe our ground troops?
If the Islamic State is as dangerous as has been represented over the past couple of months, then there ought to be motivation around the world to join in this effort. It would be wonderful if the United Nations, by way of example, did what the United Nations is supposed to do, or if NATO became much more active as a body in this kind of engagement, spread out to focus on the Middle East with what is happening with the Islamic State. The opportunity is there for us to have a viable coalition that includes ground forces from multiple nations. The question is going to be whether Secretary of State John Kerry, President Barack Obama have the skill set and the wherewithal to mold that coalition into a cohesive unit that will combine to defeat the Islamic State.
You know, we really haven't had a ground campaign where we had soldiers next to our soldiers since Korea, where the Turks were fighting with us. The South Koreans, they were great fighters. Everybody said they were the greatest allies to have, the Turks and the South Koreans, fighting with us against the North Korean communists and the Red Army from China. You talk about the UN, and they did put that. It was a UN action. When since then have we had a UN action that has really been a forged unit of fighting men willing to fight a war to its end?
None that I can recall, and that's been one of the greatest disappointments I've had with the United Nations. Perhaps they have done something, and my memory escapes me at the current time, but in terms of peacekeeping, the United Nations has failed to do the job that was envisioned when it was created after World War II in the late 1940s.
It looks like us again and us alone. Again, thank you so much, Congressman Brooks from Alabama.